Imagine this, in just 3 seconds you find out who actually controls the planet in 2026, G7 or BRICS. The answer will shock you. 15 years ago, the G7 controlled almost 2/3 of the global economy. Today, BRICS Plus has already overtaken them in the ways that matter most. Welcome to the ultimate showdown of titans, the economic and military clash of giants in 2026. Smash that like button if you want to know who's winning, because this war is already happening. Let's start with the hard numbers. They don't lie. In nominal GDP, raw dollars, G7 sits at roughly $54 to $56 trillion. That's the US, Germany, Japan, UK, France, Italy and Canada combined. BRICS Plus, now 10 plus members including new giants, clocks in around 33 to 35 trillion. G7 still looks ahead, but here's the knockout punch. Switch to real economic power, GDP, by purchasing power parity, PPP, what your money actually buys. BRICS Plus now commands about 40 to 44% of the entire world economy according to the latest IMF projections. G7 down to just 28 to 30%. That's right, the majority of humanity, industrial output and raw resources now sit firmly on the BRICS side. China, India, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, UAE. This isn't just emerging markets anymore. This is the new center of gravity for the planet. And the growth? It's brutal for the West. 2026 forecasts. BRICS plus average growth around 3.7 to 3.8%, G7 average a sluggish 1.1 to 1.2%, India blasting at 6.2%, China holding strong at 4.2%, Ethiopia and Indonesia pushing 5 to 7%. Meanwhile, Europe stagnates, Germany flat, France barely breathing, Italy struggling. How long can the G7 keep pretending they're on top when the real muscle, production, people, momentum has already shifted east and south? Demographics deliver the next blow. BRICS Plus represents nearly 50 to 56% of the world's population. Over 4 billion young, working-age people. G7 just around 10%, under 800 million and aging fast. Youth versus retirement homes. Math doesn't lie. Now the military side, because money without guns is just a pretty spreadsheet. Defense spending estimates for 2025 to 2026, US alone pushing $900 to $1,000 billion. Whole G7 roughly 1.4 to 1.6 trillion. BRICS plus harder to sum perfectly due to different pricing. But real combat power estimates put them at 1.1 to 1.4 trillion or more, with China approximately 250 to 450 billion baseline, growing fast, Russia approximately 180 to 200 billion amid war footing, India approximately 80 to 90 billion, plus surging spends from Saudi, UAE, Iran. Key edges: active plus reserve troops, BRICS plus to 10 to 12 million under arms, G7 to only 3.5 to 4 million nuclear warheads, G7 mostly US plus France plus UK to approximately 5,500 plus BRICS plus, Russia approximately 5,500 to 6,000, China 500 to 700 and rising fast, India approximately 170 to roughly equal or edging ahead in deployable power, hypersonics, drones, satellites. Russia and China lead by 3 to 5 years in key systems. The US is catching up, but the gap is closing. Bottom line, G7 still has global reach advantage with hundreds of bases worldwide. BRICS Plus has sheer numbers, resource control and rapidly closing tech gaps. They don't need to police the planet, just defend their sphere. The deadliest BRICS weapon, de-dollarization, trade in yuan, rubles, rupees, rials. BRICS pay system rolling out. If 40% plus of global oil and gas flips away from the dollar, America's endless money printer starts coughing fast. So who wins in 2026? G7 still holds higher living standards, superior per capita wealth, swift control, Hollywood and media narrative power. BRICS Plus owns the people, the growth, the resources, the armies and growing confidence. This isn't David versus Goliath anymore. It's two Goliaths, one old, rich and tired, the other young, hungry and rising fast. The biggest question for 2026: will the West accept the end of its monopoly? Will BRICS become the real alternative world order? Or does open conflict hit before balance is found? Drop in the comments, BRICS or G7, and tell me, should we do part 2? What happens if the dollar really crashes? Subscribe and hit the bell. This story is just getting started. See you in the next battle.